Welcome to Reframe Your Mindset for Success. With me today is Ron Carucci. How are you doing, Ron?
Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm really good, really good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Nice to talk to you.
That's good. So what have you been up to today and this week, Ron? What are your plans?
Well, gosh, it's been a busy work week. It's been a little bit of a sad week. I had to attend a funeral of a dear friend
That's not good.
yesterday, so that has me definitely. My mindset is definitely, on a bigger picture this week,
Yeah,
for
definitely.
sure. I mean,
Oh, sorry to hear.
those are always the moments that make life suddenly bring it into sharp focus. So, and other than that, helping my clients and helping the world be a better place through the work we do at my firm.
Brilliant, brilliant. So, I mean, obviously we do any funeral that you go to, it really does make you think about the bigger picture, doesn't it? And about life in general. And, I'm really sorry to hear that that's been the start of your week then.
I
Um,
appreciate that, Paul.
Great stuff. So, Ron, I always start the podcast with focusing on you and your story. So, and I have many words you want to share it with us. It's kind of an over to you, please.
Mhm. So I'm a native New Yorker, and for those of you who know this part of the country, over in the UK, you know that New York is made up of a lot of different people, but certainly back in the day when my parents were there, it was full of a lot of Italian Americans. And I come from a classic New York Italian family. So all the TV shows you've seen, including The Sopranos, those are just like I grew up in. um, and so I'm the youngest of five in my family.
Yeah,
And I went to school in New York City. Um, I trained in the arts, but quickly learned that I tend to bore easily. So doing the same thing 8 times a week was probably not going to be a good career for me. I eventually found my way into organizational psychology and learned that I get to deal with everybody's story in a very different way. And that was never going to bore me. So I pivoted my career early in my career. I was very fortunate to figure out
yeah,
something that I love and I'm passionate about. I spent a bunch of years working, doing my work, helping leaders and organizations develop themselves inside big companies. But I also learned that I didn't have quite the political savvy skills to navigate that world. I learned that telling the truth and being honest about what I was seeing, which is what I thought I was hired to do, wasn't such a good idea all the time. And so, uh, as I began to sort of in between those jobs, um, work in the consulting world, I quickly observed that the same behavior that got me in trouble inside companies got me paid very well outside companies.
right.
Uh,
Yeah,
so I made the decision that if I was going to live out my passion for organizations, it was going to have to be by not being part of one.
yeah.
And then pivoted my life to consulting, and then joined a wonderful consulting firm in New York City, and spent 8 years there, learning a lot and growing in my craft and increasing my passion for changing the world this way. And then at the end of that time, a few of my friends there and I decided we wanted to continue this work. That firm had been sold to a bigger firm, and so once that had happened, it really stopped being fun. And we thought we can do this on our own now. We can go create our own way to do this, and still keep our love of this work
Yeah.
intact. So 18 years ago, we started Navalent, the firm that I help lead today, and
Brilliant.
have been at that ever since, changing the world and changing lives and getting up every day with the incredible privilege of knowing that we get to leave the world better than we found it.
Brilliant, brilliant. And the work you do with leaders is that at CEO level and senior leadership, or is it throughout the organization? How would you describe it?
Probably it's mostly senior folks, people who are leading large parts of their organization or leading universities or leading countries
Oh,
even.
brilliant. Wow.
But people who are somehow facing some very daunting requirement or opportunity for big change.
Yeah, no, makes sense. That culture change, and I guess with being in business for 18 years, we haven't experienced change like we've experienced it in the last 3 or 4 years with the pandemic, lockdown, and everything else that's been going on in the world. Just more of recently, it's been very volatile. So how have you found that? Just out of interest as well.
Paul, it's I think it seems to be that when the world is facing a challenge, we get busier.
Yeah.
Somehow, when crisis shows up, leaders are more prone to ask for help. And so for us, it has meant being more busy. We've always been a virtual firm. So for
Oh,
us,
okay.
the
Okay.
rest of the world going virtual was just sort of them catching up, but we've always been a virtual firm.
Oh wow,
Um,
that's because I think for a lot of people and a lot of businesses, it was obviously the need that made them jump to the virtual world rather than there wasn't that many companies that I knew of that were working virtually really well. So it was something that you were doing well before the pandemic hit then.
right. We did it before it was fashionable. Um,
I like
but
that.
but what's nice is that now our clients are recognizing, and I think the whole world is still learning, what to do when. When do you have to come together in the same
Yeah,
space? What technologies work best for doing certain virtual things? What things can't you do virtually? And even we had to adapt. I mean, there were certain types of work that we do that we would always do in person. We would go together for several days with a
yeah,
team away, and now we're learning how to adapt. Um, um, and do the same work we do, just doing it virtually
yeah.
in shorter chunks of time because you can't have people on Zoom for 8 hours. Mm.
I know that's absolutely right. And I know back before the pandemic, working for the likes of Bank of America, a global organization, when you've got that global entity, you've got to do things virtually to develop leaders, and that was the case. It's as you say though, it's now a lot more fashionable because everybody else has caught on, and it's the way that everybody's doing it now. But and getting that balance right, that really is the trick. So, as you know, Ron, and I look at it and I go, well, mindset and leadership go hand in hand. And as you know, the podcast is about reframing your mindset for success. So, based on what you do and the work that you do with leaders and organizations, and just for you in general, why is mindset so important?
Well, gosh, I mean, it's kind of foundational to everything, isn't it, Paul? I think how we show up in the world and how we make sense of the world. Most leaders are anything but mindful about their mindset. Most leaders are reflexive. Most of our responses in the world are subconscious.
Yeah,
And when we don't learn to take hold of our minds and understand how we're processing information, how we're filtering information, how we're interpreting the world around us, we have no way of optimizing our own participation in it. We all have places where we're not at our best, right? One of the things I love to do with leaders is ask them to go back through their calendars in the last 10 days or 2 weeks and pick out several moments where they were less than their best selves,
yeah,
where they embellished data to their boss or withheld hard feedback from someone they lead because they didn't want to deal with a defensive response, or they were not kind to the barista at the coffee shop, or they were sort of blew out their kids. What you will find is that those moments are not random.
yeah,
Those moments are all serving a purpose. We may not always understand what that purpose is, but we choose those moments very carefully, even though they're not behaviors we would condone. And we would say that those behaviors don't align with our values, but still we choose them anyway. And I think until we can come to terms with why we choose behaviors we know we would never want to be, we can't change our mindsets. But but
right.
but
That's
there are
fascinating.
reasons. Those
Yeah.
behaviors are serving a purpose, and until we can understand what that narrative is that's driving our choices, we can't change. Mm.
Yeah, that's fascinating because I see some of that because of the type of person that you're working with, and you go, well, if someone's introverted, it might drive different behaviors to someone who's extroverted, or if someone's more of a feeling type than a logical type, then you might see different types of behaviors, and they're not always the right behaviors, as you say, but they're more attuned to the type of person that you're working with. So that's fascinating. So how would you describe your mindset then? I mean, obviously you've been very successful in business all of these years and developed leaders at a very senior level, as you're saying, working with universities and countries as well. But how would you actually describe your mindset?
Um, I don't know that I would describe it in one way, Paul, but I think at least my intention is to stay curious, to
Yeah,
stay open, to always be learning, um, to self-regulate in moments where I'm feeling stressed or anxious, or to know when I'm triggered, to know when I'm in a situation or around people or in conditions where I might be predisposed not to be my best self, to at least be mindful of that, and to know, I always have choices available to me when I want to react a certain way, or be angry, or be impatient, or be snarky. To at least consider what other options I have available to me in those moments. Sometimes that's hard,
yeah,
but at least that's how I mean, I try to begin my day uh, with gratitude, to be thankful for the fact that I'm part of a bigger story. In fact, I think one of the things that people with good mindsets do is they have rituals.
yeah.
They have practices. I have a closet full of coffee mugs in the kitchen next to my office, and every morning, and all those mugs come from different parts of the world and represent different types of experiences I've had with certain people that are important to me. And every morning when I pick my mug, it's sort of me picking a part of my story and a part of my life that
Brilliant.
I'm grateful for, and to remember that I'm part of a bigger story, and that others have contributed to that story. So I start my day by remembering that I'm not the center of the universe, and nor are my problems or challenges, and to start with a place of being grateful for all the parts, even the hard parts of the story I get to be part of.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I really like that. And I take it you like coffee too.
I do. I do like coffee.
I'm a coffee drinker, so I like me coffee first thing in the morning, and I like the way that you take those mugs out, and the way that you just explain that. That's brilliant. So when you look at mindset, because what I do ask on the podcast is that's just in itself is a great practical tool technique. You talked about rituals, but do you have any other mindset tips or techniques that you could share?
Well, I think I think mindfulness, which is the practice of managing our mindset.
Yeah,
It's for a lot of leaders, it's for a lot of people, it sounds really voodooish and really woo woo, and can be very easy to dismiss or be anxious about. But I think if we were all to bring, I mean, here's the question I love to ask people who um, who hear the word mindset and get a little bit skittish. Um, I'll ask them, have you ever driven home from work, and then gotten home and having really no idea how you got there?
I have loads of times.
And they say it all the time. And I'll
Yeah,
say, well, how do you do that? How, if you're not really paying attention to the road, and just you sort of, how is it that you go on autopilot, don't have a car accident, know how to stop at the stop signs and the traffic lights, and you actually get home to your driveway without thinking about it? And they can't answer. And my next question is, well, if you can do that driving home, are there other parts of your life that could be on autopilot that maybe you're not aware of? Um,
absolutely.
and if that's the case, are there places where your life might be on autopilot where it's not good for it to be on autopilot? Are there relationships you participate in? Are there habits you wouldn't want people to know about? Are there places where you act in certain ways that afterwards you say to yourself, why do I do that? Or why do I keep doing that? And people will say, sure, we all have those. I'm like, yeah, we all do, but we don't have to keep them. But those are all the places where mindset becomes important,
Yeah,
because those are all the places where things are showing up in your life that are causing you or other people pain. And unless you understand what brings you to those choices in the first place, or what conditioning that you're not conscious of that leads you to act that way, you know, without thinking about it. When you have a tough meeting with your boss, and the next thing you know, you're headed to the pub and pouring a scotch, or you have a fight with your spouse, and the next thing you know, you're online looking at porn, or you get some really unfair feedback from your boss or your colleague on your work, and the next thing you know is you're on Amazon shopping for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? We don't ever connect the dots between cause and effect, but there are reasons. There are always reasons we do the things we do, and if we're not mindful of what those reasons are, that means those behaviors are governing us. We're not governing them. That's how addictions start. That's how bad habits start. That's where the places we do self-destructive things begin. And suddenly we're crossing over lines we thought we'd never cross. And suddenly we find ourselves in places or in circumstances that really are problematic. And we look behind us and think, how did I get here? Well, it's not just same way you got home from work without thinking about it is how you got here. And it's better to start thinking about governing your mindset and being mindful of how and why you do the things you do and think the things you think before you get to the place that you have to ask yourself, how did I get here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in some respects, it's a little bit like default settings, isn't it? That we're conditioned by every experience that you have default settings and they can be positive or negative. But actually, if you keep playing the same program over and over again, and as you're quite rightly saying, you can have positive outcomes, but you can have very negative outcomes as well.
Yep. And I think, we have to remember that our brains are very lazy organs. Our brains do not like to work hard. Our brains are processing millions and millions and millions of pieces of information a day. We don't have the electricity in our brains sufficient to do all that consciously. So our brains create pathways. They create, connections, and then they go on autopilot. Because our brains do not want to have to. Our brains don't have the capacity to process consciously all the things we have to do during the day. It doesn't mean we can't do it consciously. It doesn't mean we can't be more mindful of what those pathways are. But to your point about default settings, once we do something once or twice, that pathway is formed, and it may have produced some satisfying result, maybe in not the healthiest of ways, but suddenly we now have a way to do that without having to think about it.
Yeah, no, it makes absolute sense. So over the years, from young, growing up, being in business, who's actually helped to develop your mindset over the years? Any inspirations that you've taken from?
Oh my gosh. I think there are lots of people I've read. There are certain authors I love to listen to or read about. I think I think we should all have a place we process life with, whether it's a coach or a therapist or a spiritual advisor of some kind. I think we all benefit because when we're talking out loud and processing in the presence of somebody else, we make things visible that normally aren't. And I think we're designed. If you think about how, interesting enough, we can't see our own face, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think the reason for that is I think we need other people to read us. We need other people to interpret us. And we all are. I mean, you think about, the fact that we are all topics of somebody's conversation that we're not in on. Do we know what they're saying? Or are we making up in our heads what we think they're saying? And are we right? I think having a place where we can talk about life with other people helps us understand how others see our face.
oh, that's really interesting. That's a really interesting thought. Definitely. So over the years, and you've obviously traveled wide, and I know you do a lot of stuff virtually to develop leaders at the same time. Have you got any funny stories that maybe something's gone wrong, or something that you can share with the listeners from your escapades and your travels?
Well, I mean, gosh, I've had way too many airport mishaps to count. But here's a funny one from recently. Now, we can't do this on video, but imagine when you pick up your phone. And we're looking at a picture, and we want to zoom in. We take our thumb and our forefinger on our pointer finger, and we sort of wipe over the picture to make it bigger, right?
Yeah.
It's routine. Well, a few weeks ago, I was looking at a photograph that was hanging on my refrigerator. They were the magnet of my children from a long time ago, and there was something on the wall uh, hanging on behind them at the house we lived in at the time, and I couldn't see what it was. So I picked the picture off of the refrigerator, and I squinted, and then I took my thumb and my forefinger and literally started trying to make the photograph bigger. And it took me like 4 seconds of frustration of why isn't this working to realize what I was doing. And I broke. I mean, I broke out in laughter because there was no consequence there. But to realize, oh my gosh, I'm so used to picking up my phone or my iPad or on my computer, using my thumb and my pointer finger to actually bring things closer into view for me, that I just assumed I could do it with a picture too. And it was a funny moment, but I think it was so telling to me. And of course, my wife came in and said, "What are you laughing at?" I said, "Here's what I'm doing." And she immediately laughed too. It was a good laugh. But how many places, we're on, to use your word, it was my default setting. When you're squinting at a picture, use your thumb and your finger to fix it.
And it goes to show how much the world's changed, doesn't it, as well? I kind of look at it and go, the mobile phone just in itself is if it ever goes missing, it always used to be you misplace your keys and then you'd be like, where have I put my keys? But now it's your phone.
Oh,
And
yeah.
your phone can actually be on you, but it's not in the pocket that you think it's in. And you have a mobile phone, like, knee-jerk reaction because you're trying to find your phone. And it's like,
Well,
do you know what I
and
mean?
what's so interesting, Paul, is when you it's that what's the first response? It's not always my phone. It's panic.
Yeah,
It's
absolute
an it's
panic.
it's
Yeah,
a
I've lost
I
my
mean,
phone.
and it's like panic. Oh my God, how I can't do without it.
Yeah,
And panic. Oh my God, my information will get stolen. Like
yeah,
there are legitimate reasons to panic
yeah.
when
My
you
life's
can't
on
find it, and
there.
there's
Yeah,
stupid reasons to panic. Um, but why is it, and most especially, why isn't it in the place you thought it was and where you always put it? Where did you deviate from your routine that you don't pay much attention to, that suddenly you put your phone somewhere where you never put it?
absolutely, absolutely, and that's part of it. Then to the point of the same with keys, isn't it? Some points, if you can't find them, you start blaming other people. They haven't done anything, and it's like because you've normally got this routine and default setting that you recognise that you're proud of in a way, and then you can't find. I just find it amusing. I don't know if it's us men that do it more than the ladies. I'm not too sure because that's what my wife says. But
Hmm.
it is quite funny in this day and age. But the mobile phone, it just goes to show you with our lives, it's like, God, it's like your life's on your phone. And that's
Yeah,
why there's panic, there literally is panic. And the next thing, it's like your phone's like just the other side of the table or something. You're like, oh God, what was I panicking for? It's just
right.
amazing the way life's changed, though.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have had my glasses on top of my head.
Yeah,
Where are my glasses?
absolutely, absolutely. So I'm really insightful. So, going back to the work that you do with leaders then, and obviously talking through, we've been focused on mindset and talking about the importance of mindset. And I know that when it comes to developing leaders, that there's certain skills and competencies that we can look at times, but sometimes that doesn't matter. I mean, you do need the right level of competency and skill set, but at the same time, if you haven't got the right level of mindset to go with it, you're not going to see behavioral change or culture change or any shift in the organization. So, from the work that you do, is it mindfulness leadership that you develop in organizations? Is that how you describe it?
Well, no, I don't use that word mostly because it triggers people in ways that aren't
In,
helpful. And
in the wrong way, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think and I don't think it's always helpful to use language that's been hijacked by something else. But self-awareness is certainly always
right, yeah,
um, a, a a fair bet for the region. But what I'm always in, what where I'm when I'm working with an individual executive, um, that's working on changing a behavior that's not productive or trying to build new skills that they need for a new assignment. I have to go back, especially for behaviors that are resistant to technique, right? So I'll say, okay, here's some techniques you can use to do this. But when the behavior is resistant to change, that tells me that there's a bigger root to that choice. It's
Yeah.
a it's fear, or it's anxiety, or it's anger, or it's some trauma from your childhood. And so we have to go back. We have to go back to the origin stories that taught you this behavior in the first place. And sometimes leaders don't like doing that, but it's always very transformative and very liberating when they're able to finally unlock something they've worked on for so long and haven't been able to change, to realize that it had a much longer tail than they understood.
Right, so I'm with you. So it's very much a coaching approach in a way, and I guess at times a little bit of counselling then, depending on what you explore and what you find out.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's the boundaries between consulting and coaching and therapeutic work and all other kind. I mean, the boundaries are all blurred now because we realize that it takes a multidisciplinary approach to help real change stick.
Right, with you. Okay. So just to conclude, I mean, I had a couple of questions I've got just to finish off with. The consultancy that you run, you've been running for 18 years. How would you describe the consultancy and the work that you do for organizations? What would be your unique selling points?
So Navalent is the name of our firm, and we are a leadership and organizational firm that helps leaders, realize the transformational changes they're pursuing. Our code language is within, between, among. We recognize that change has to take place within you, sometimes deep within you, between you and others, between your function and another function, between your division and another division, and among you, meaning strategically, culturally, structurally, systemically, and it has to be all three. You have plenty of people out there that will just do coaching work within, or they'll do team building between, or they'll
Yeah.
do some other change work strategically or culturally among, but they just do one. And the reality is, you can do one or two of those brilliantly, but if you leave one out, eventually the change will fall short or you'll regress, because you'll do the inner work with somebody's within, but you don't change the relationships, or you'll change the relationships, but you don't change the culture, or you change the culture, but you don't build the individual skill, right? So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and so I think what makes us very unique is that we focus on all three, and we don't see them as three things. We see it as one thing.
Oh, that's brilliant. I like that. It's really, really good, really good. So to leave the listeners with one last piece of advice, what piece of advice would you leave them with today?
Yeah, I would go back to my question from before and ask you, what's the thing that brings you to say in your life, why do I keep doing that? And linger a little bit longer on that question, because there's an answer. And it's not just that you don't have willpower, or not just that this is just a quirk of who you are. It's not some genetic defect. There's a reason you do it. And I would ask you to consider, what is it you're telling yourself about the fact that it's not going to get worse? How have you rationalized oh, it's just my quirk, or it's just who I am, or God, I wish I would stop doing that, but what are you going to do? No one's perfect. And listen to the ways you've made it okay. But ask yourself, if a video montage were made of you, of all those moments where you do that thing you wish you didn't do, and then someone took that video, would you be okay with them using that video to train your children?
Wow, that's really powerful. Yeah, I really like that. Well, Ron, thanks very much for coming on the podcast. It's been really insightful. Thanks for sharing, obviously your leadership journey, and as well, the insights into your mindset and mindset tools and tips and techniques that you've shared today. So thank you very much.
Paul, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.